which is transforming an event into something that has a cultural and social impact. It's very important. Using public money not to foster your own exhibition, your own vision of design. It's very important. It's we don't have an open design school, but this concept of openness, it's very important, which means without any demagogical concern, is to leave this platform open to people who don't know anything about design, and they can enter, and through project workshops and etc. they can start to take part in a cultural movement, what I call. Yeah, sorry, I didn't prepare it.
Full screen, the top left?
Yeah.
The top left of the image.
Of the oh.
That.
Okay.
Nice.
No,
We always
nice
learn,
nice
and
hint.
so
There's
this.
always an easier way to do it.
But it doesn't. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit slow.
It's
Well,
horizontal learning.
It's really horizontal learning, and I mean, I never learned how to do it myself, but I will one day. So I was saying, Reciprocity Design Liège was born on the heritage of this biennial of design in Liège, which was completely focused product design and Belgian design in particular. And when I was invited to take the artistic direction, I had the chance to be not to be alone at that moment, but to be with a group of people, and we decided to build on a previous experience, which was called Recenter. It was a European project involving regional schools, so it's a little bit the idea was to link and to connect schools from the Dutch and Belgian Limburg with Liège and Aachen, Maastricht, etc. And this project was produced a very good energy in preparing students to exchange, and the problem of language started at that moment, because of course people from Maastricht and in general from the Belgian Limburg didn't have any problem to speak English, but people from Liège did. So we experienced the problem at that time already, and it's still a very important problem, which shouldn't be make a discrimination, but we have to find other ways to work together. So the heritage of Recenter, it was the connection, the network, and it was very logical to us to use this energy, these connections, to create something different, which was very courageously accepted from the province. We didn't expect to have a yes immediately from the public authorities, but they understood that switching the orientation of this former biennial into something wider, which was integrating design in the territory, which was opening the meaning of design towards a general learning and living experience and methodology. The impact of the design methodology, so the way designers are able to analyze and to create solutions to problems into a neighborhood, for instance, and creating participatory methodologies with citizens and and other actors from the society. It was very important. And the fact that the province accepted to start this new format, it was really encouraging.
And when that happened?
It happened in 2012. It was the first edition. Then, of course, one problem occurred. For me, it was one of the major problems. It was that the biennial became a triennial, which means that this lapse, this moment between the two editions was bigger than before. And this is very bad, I think, for this kind of things, because of course you don't have the budget that continues over the 3 years where the triennale is not, the event is not there. And it was probably, it's not the lack of money, but it was the lack of infrastructure and people that was there to help building and continuing the project we started in the year before. So probably this was not expected, and it was the bad point and the bad experience we had. But for the rest, I think the fact of considering a public event, a big event, because it costs money, public money, considering it as a opportunity to start projects and to involve citizens in it. It was very important. It is very important. We are preparing the 2018 edition, and we are starting again a project in a neighborhood which is particularly interesting because it's a neighborhood where a huge public library will be built together with a complete real estate enormous project that is changing completely in the dynamics around the urban dynamics around this public library. So the idea is to question and to create a little bit of first of all of cohesion around this area, which will be completely touched by this transformation, but also to understand how the community around this big transformation will take part to the transformation itself, because of course every time there are big projects which are under it's always justified by cultural project which is involving people, but the people in an area which is touched by this big transformation is never very informed or involved in the final project. So we are starting this research in a couple of weeks, and we transformed also the idea of exhibition into the end of a process where we whether it's students who are participating to a public call or curators who are working with designers and architects, it's always a process which is starting 1.5 years before the exhibition, and the exhibition becomes a moment where the results are exhibited. So it's not the ready-made which is transported and taken into the exhibition, but it's something which is created for this exhibition. It's not working.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So you just press.
Oh, you want
Maybe.
to keep on rolling?
But I don't want to talk on the pictures, but what is very important is for me
You can play it. Yeah.
interact also to with the idea of being a participant, I mean, what it is. Sometimes I consider exhibition as a very autistic moment where curators impose their own vision and it doesn't bring anywhere. The idea of using design as also a very important moment of communication, for instance, and to trying to communicate through topics that you launch as a theme, a reflection, a process that designers that are intended to participate are transforming their way of thinking, and this switch from objects to processes and to reflections is very important to me. In some cases, we had themes like memorabilia. It was in 2012. We decided to ask designers to consider their work as more than a functional object, but something that was working on memory and how you can communicate. Can communicate narratives which are normally hidden from the product design. So the idea is it was really to transform the vision of design into something much more open to society, to emotional, to activism, and a real change in society. I don't know. So the next edition will be in 2018, and for that we launched a call to schools, but in this case we launched a call to teachers and not to students, because we are trying to create a platform for pedagogical objects. It's not only a funny game of words, but it's also the objective is really to see how Europe is changing the way of teaching design at school, and towards what aims European schools are going in the sector of design. So we ask teachers to present the work of selected students in order to explain visually what is their pedagogical vision. So it's a little bit the opposite. Normally it's the student that is representing the school, but in this case it's the teacher that is, throughout the work of the student, is speaking about his vision. Another important project is about fragility. So we decided we don't have a main theme at Reciprocity. We did open a little bit towards different topics every time. But this time I think fragility, we did a little bit the opposite. We decided that fragility is the theme of an exhibition which will be treated by 3 different curators in different disciplines. So fragility, why? Because I think it's a very strong topic today. And the meaning that I would like to, that I asked the curators to agree with, is fragility as a value and not as a point of weakness, as a value to create something different, to change our way of perceiving things, perceiving ourselves, the way of producing and manufacturing, and the way we perceive our future, which is not anymore something that we consider as a stable truth and strong and foreseeable future. It's something that we don't know. There are many question marks. We cannot control everything, and the idea of admitting that we are fragile, it's a very important condition to change our way of living and our future. So in this fragility exhibition, which is called in the Latin manner, so it's fragilitas. Fragilitas because for me it was this link to the virtues in Latin. We will have architecture, precarious architecture. We will have self-construction. We will have objects which are meant to produce more well-being to people, so without speaking about medical conditions or so, but it's more a well-being condition. And we will have adaptive design, which is very important today, and I think you talked about it, and it's really that direction which is very interesting. Adaptive design, which is from transforming till hacking and design objects or opening structures to a more participatory reflection and manufacturing. And it's very important to us to talk about also to open our vision to universal design, which is not possible anymore, because universal it's a word that was belonging to a modern vision, but design today is designed for everyone. It's not for all of us, it's for every of us, which is a very important consideration, and I think designers should know it. We are not designing for all, but we are designing with the people that will use this product. And we had a very nice meeting a few days ago with the curator of this section, which is Lieven de Couvreur, who was very convincing in the sense that he's working with disabled people, and what he said is, I'm not working to solve their medical problem, but I'm working to let them, we are working together to give them the freedom to do whatever they want, to play music, to cook, or to, so it's not, it's a very different approach, maybe quite nuancé, but it's really very important for future designers, I think. So we're not designing to solve problems, but to give freedom to people. Yeah, I would have many other things to say, but I think.
Why is this happening in Liège?
Yes, well, why?
Yeah.
I didn't decide. I didn't decide. I would have preferred Matera, for instance. Liège. I think Liège. It's a very interesting area. Ezio Manzini, who's a writer, one of the founder of Design for Social Innovation and etc., defined our area, because Hasselt is a porous area. A porous in the sense that it's true. There is an energy in this Limburg, Wallonia, Liège, Maastricht, etc., which is a little bit apart from the more official design highway, Milano, London, and etc. But it's well, first of all, it has a very important industrial history. So it's a matter of fact that there is something in the DNA for sure regarding production, manufacturing, and industrial culture. But then I think Wallonia had, and I'm speaking for them, I'm not from there, and I was really an outsider in 2012. I think Liège has this energy of kind of this challenge of getting again a kind of centrality in the debate of industrial debate, technological, and etc. It's an industrial. It's a former very important industrial area which has lost the richness and the power to be more central and there you find all the. Of course, it makes it very impressive and very energetic to work in. At the same time, you feel a lot of difficulties also in, like this feeling of to feel less than the others, which is very bad and very hard to convince. I mean, with Pablo, we had this experience in Serein, which is this industrial area around Liège, former industrial area. ArcelorMittal was the main industry down there. The mines and the metal work was very important, and all of a sudden, throughout the years, all this industrial power disappeared, and all the people from the area, but also a lot of migrants that were there for this economic power, they were left completely alone, without anything, without work, and with this urban transformation, which was completely transforming the rural into an area which is hyper polluted today, and the future of this area is completely unknown, or it's in transformation. So last year 2 years ago we were there to do this research on social innovation, and it was really hard to start. Not only there was not even a problem of language; it was really a problem of how do you imagine. They weren't able to imagine anything. So it's and sometimes we are not able to imagine, but I can understand that the problem of where you don't have any future, it's really influencing your perception of everyday life. But in that case, it was really not only cultural, it was really at a pure perception level, that you don't give the same meaning to words, and you don't have the same sense of time, for instance, not even that. So it's really a problem when we speak about language, but it's also it's a problem of definitions, perceptions, and sometimes it's really hard. And sometimes I ask myself, are we succeeding by doing this? I suppose yes, and I still believe in that. But sometimes I feel
that's another definition that we have to think. What is succeeding?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's yeah, but of course it's. I think I'd better talk for myself instead of saying, yeah, they are probably obtaining, this experience was good for them. I will talk only for myself. It's really enriching, but at the same time, I don't know. Well, I think that we still have a lot to do in creating tools to do this kind of work. So language is one of them, but I still believe that we are writing a lot and making. Probably we still don't have a lot of impact on public authorities or this neighborhood, which are. So I felt really bad when I always feel very bad when it stops, because it shouldn't stop, or at least it should stop a little bit later. But that's my personal feeling. Sorry if I'm not very optimistic and positive, but probably it's. I prefer to discuss it here than during a research where you are communicating.
Possibly linked to Matera. When you go, when you leave the place and when you stop, the festival. What is remaining? Are there universities there enough to provide the continuing process? And is Liège rich of creativity, or is the area capable enough to proceed? Yeah.
You first.
Yeah.
So I think about my answer.
Good choice. I think that the idea for the Open Design School is to remain there, to stay there. Right? So it's constructing itself not as an event, but as something that will be part of the community. And then.
But reality is that 1/3 will stay there.
Of whom? Of the participants?
Yeah, where you said 1/3 is local, 1/3 is Italian, and 1/3 is outside. So 1/3 will remain after the period.
Yeah, and a lot of people, like by a lot, I mean, in perspective, I've seen some people moving there, like after and seeing the potential of the area and the possibilities of making change and proposing change. So I know that out of the 15 participants, like one architect, which was from Milano, I think, she is actively working there. So
is it fed by enough institutes like universities? Is it or is it surrounding Matera? Where the possible universities are? Or
I think Matera is changing, and I think that the change was not. I was talking to some locals and talking about that the change was not promoted necessarily by the choice of being the cultural capital, but they say that there was a big change after the Passion of Christ, the movie. Mel Gibson was made more for Matera than the choice of being cultural capital. And so it promoted the transformation of Matera and the tourism, and then putting some light on the city, which was put it aside for a long time in history. So that is also changing what like this notion of inferiority as well. People are starting to believe that they have something interesting there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a transformation that is not necessarily a transformation of landscape, but a transformation of internal landscape as well.
Yes.
So I don't know, I don't know if I have the answer. I think we are trying, for the Open Design School, we are trying to propose something that will last. And we're trying to propose not just a design school, but we're trying to propose, as I was saying, with the triangulations, we're trying to promote new connections within the Matera, but also within Basilicata, within the region. We're also connecting, for example, with other institutions like the La Scuola Open Source, the new school, open source school from Bari, which is something super new as well.
Mm.
We're trying to connect with them.
Someone connecting with that Alessandro is.
Oh, yeah?
There are two Alessandros in that school, and there's another Alessandro who is connected with that.
So,
Yeah, I think I have more or less the same feeling. Like I can make a list of what I think it was the impact, and there are elements. I can tell you that the Saint Luc Institute, the School of Design, is starting this year a social design course. I can tell you that the local association of Serein is taking a little bit what we started and continuing with some money, because that is important as well. So that's probably something that I can measure partially, but probably I'm not. I'm not interested in measuring. I think the politicians should measure it instead of me, and I don't want to go around and saying, look what we did. It's a personal frustration, it's a professional frustration when it stops, because it was interesting and I would have liked to continue the research. And it's a little bit a control geek approach as well, no? We have to be there to check what's happening, to do things, and etc. Probably we started something and it's very good, and it's enough, And what it will be, it's not under our control. We can still be part of it if we are interested as individuals, not as a cultural force that is going to.
Are we in a moment now that we are more responsible as a designer? Meaning, if we wouldn't go to these decentralized areas or being asked to go there, would our impact be less harmful than we would go and do things and they would stop and be nothing?
Mm-hmm.
How is this changing us as designers?
I think there were people doing that before, but they were not called designers. I think also, like, how do you define the possibility of change that you're promoting? How do I say that? I think it has a different look right now, but there was, I don't know, it's hard for me to say, like, I'm from Brazil, so I'm not going to talk much about history of Europe, but I don't know. I don't think there's anything new going on. I think it's just a continuous effort.
I think it also has to do that there is, I don't know, at least in Europe and for instance in the US, there was like some time where a lot of communities were also semi-invisibilized. So people thought like, oh, there were not poor people in the US, for instance. That's something that people kind of understood. And of course, it's kind of an idea that is made around like, oh yeah, first world country and the kind of big economic power, and then Katrina hit, and they're like, oh, fuck, but there is people living in misery.
Yeah.
And like now it's been even more visibilized by like all these disenfranchised people voting for Trump.
Yeah.
You cannot blame them. They're just people that have not been listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And like then comes a guy to say like, I represent you. Like, yeah, why not? Like, I mean, it's not their fault. They're not racist. Okay, but that's another discussion. But in this case, it's similar. Like there is another kind of all the industrial paradigm around which Europe was built. And that represented a kind of form of design as well. And as you said, was kind of centered around Milan, London, whatnot. But then like there is all these kind of problems and like situations that are very real. That I mean, in Serein, like it's dramatic. Like you don't have to go very far to like to find like this kind of misery. You go to Charleroi, you go to Serein, you go even so close to here, like in Genk. It's not that dramatic, but it's still like we can feel it. So I think these kind of things are kind of coming to the surface, and so it's becoming kind of a new thing to address. Like you don't have to go anymore to Africa. Like a lot of people in Europe have this kind of Africa, this kind of bad example of like, oh yeah, it's underdevelopment and all these ideas of third world underdevelopment and so on. Like were built, and now like all these things have been like impossible to hide. So I think they've become more visible, and it can be seen as an opportunity, or it can be seen as just like an issue that is now impossible to hide.
But you're talking about like mapping problems or mapping alternatives, like because it seems like we're communicating these possibilities more and more nowadays, you know. But they were always like self-organized, you know, solutions like within communities or within cities or within neighborhoods. They always try to organize themselves or try to solve an issue that they had.
Mm-hmm.
But right now it seems we are better at communicating this to the outside.
No, I still believe, yeah, it's a matter of communication, and it's very important what you say, but at the same time, I think, let me be positive for once and think that, design has developed a methodology which is a very important tool to that helps in this kind of situation, and of course it includes the communication, because design is communicating as well, or mainly. But I think the methodology, which is probably a kind of manual or whatever, which is a basic tool to share. And I never believe in a list of rules which are the same for everybody, but this appropriation of the methodology of a designer in this kind of frameworks like social problems, emergencies, and etc. It's very important. I still believe that it's one of the most important things we did in those last years by promoting design. Not only in the production frame, but also in the social frame, which is an important goal. Still a lot to do, because when I still believe that we should try to create tools and to accelerate some local empowerment. But the danger, and that is what makes me doubting sometimes, is that the tendency is to become a little bit colonialist. No, sometimes it's like we go there, we impose a little bit our language, our vision, our what we consider our tools, and probably that's my only it's a big reflection we should do, and probably to change a little bit the way sometimes this kind of researches are developed. But I think it's a matter of being respectful and be aware of the limits of these researches, and respecting the context and the culture, and probably what we consider the poverty of it's not only economical poverty. Sometimes we consider it as a cultural poverty, and we have to be very careful in this.
It's a very new thing to do, well, like a social design. I think, well, it's not a new thing, but I mean, it's like a new common thing that most people are. More people are involved in like a social design. It's like a shift in sort of like what design can mean in a way, like in at some point, like let's say graphic designers, say 90s or before because of the new technology, there's like this shift that design can be an author. Like before, somebody provided this designer the content, and then they did the form.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was sort of free that, okay, as a designer you can be also the author, so you can also provide the content. So I think this same kind of might be a leap to the next thing. Okay, I can design and do the content, but I also can make an effect to the surrounding world. So I think it's like an evolution step. So I think people might do some stuff badly or because it's like a uncharted territory. Sort of like what is social design, or is it good, is it bad, or what does it do? Nobody really knows.
Yeah.
I think we're getting better at communicating stuff, you know. Even though we are still doing not a good job, but we're getting better at it. And it's better it's easier to do research about and to try to understand what were the flaws and what worked well and what didn't. So I think we slowly evolve.
Yeah, probably it's very transitional, and but I'm still very I think there is communication is not only writing, of course, and written communication, but I think we are still in a phase, probably it's transitional, where the communication is mainly theoretical, and I'm a little bit afraid. That's my other job. I mean, I've been a communicator for years, and I know what it is, and I know what's happening at international level. You have events where you have to read many pages before you visit or you experience the event, and every time it's something else of what you are expecting, and this is really a problem, I think. But at the same time, and luckily, there is this movement of the makers movement, which is not necessarily the makers that I want to focus, but the fact that we have understood that we have to do things, not only discuss or write about, and etc. And up to my experience, which is not enormous, but I think I wanted to develop this field research, and I did it. When you make things, it's really the best moment where to understand each other, or to change the way you're working. I mean, it's really a moment where you can learn a lot. Yeah.
Just thesis number 21 on your book also.
Which is?
Something about just work.
Learning by doing.
I can't remember the exact quote, but I remember it was number 21. Some odd reason.
Shall we go and eat something?
Mm-hmm.
Back to the catalog.
Ah, yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.